first of all, hello. We'll do some quick introductions. So I'm Pete, and I am Head of Technical Services for Nasstar. We also have Jack, who, if you joined any of the previous Viva webinars, you will recognise his face and his tones. We are due to have Kritzia join us as well today, but we have not seen her yet, so we will carry on anyway. And the first thing we need to do is I guess, apologise for yesterday. I believe nobody could actually get into the meeting. So Event Builder apparently had a problem with the link. The session, which was very quiet for myself and Jack, was recorded. So you will all be getting the link to that via YouTube. And we will just do a very short recap into what OKRs and how they fit together before we actually go into the demo today. But the full session will be on there for you. So please do throw in questions to us. We are more than happy to answer them. The questions that you answer, that you ask, we will ensure that you get the answers, whether it's in this or whether it's afterwards. We want to make sure you get the most out of this as much as we do. So please, as I said, do feel free to just throw questions in as we go through. Right, so let's crack on. You can kick us off, Jack.
Yeah, sure. So what is Viva Goals? So it's OKR software. But what does that mean? Well, simply put, OKR stands for Objectives and Key Results. Viva Goals is a software set that allows you to create, track and manage these within the world of teams. So it helps to create clarity and stay aligned at scale. So it helps your teams define success and work towards company-wide outcomes that align at all levels of your organization. It focuses teams on impact rather than output. So have your teams focus on work that moves the business forward, staying agile at scale and sharing the company's progress at all levels. And its goals in the flow of everyday work. So bring that data and actions seamlessly into where people are working, which is obviously in teams.
So this has not been the smoothest of webinar sessions. We don't know how to pause the animation. I'm sorry, this was done for us, but basically what we have is many organizations have goals, and they will list out the things that they want to achieve. In this case, it'll become the #1 advertising agency. And with that, you often find there are things like we need to increase the amount of sales that we do, we need to do this kind of marketing program, etc. What we're doing with OKRs is we are taking the concept of the objectives, and the objective itself isn't to have any kind of numerical value in it. So it is, we want to be the best, we want to be the market leader, we want to be whatever it is. You then have your key results, which is effectively the middle column here. So in order to do that, we want to get to 1.5 million of sales. We want to make sure that we run some events within the next quarter, and we want to introduce some measurements throughout the departments. So those are the key results that we want to measure against. And the third part to an OKR, which isn't in the initials, the acronym, is incentives. What are we actually going to do when what are we actually going to do to get us to the point that we've actually increased the revenue? So what are the actual things you're going to change? What are the things that you're going to execute? And so with that, as we go through the incentives and the execution pieces that lead into the OKRs, we want to make these public so that everybody within the organization understands their part that they play in getting the company to the goal. And so if we look at this, we can see that we've got all of the things that we need to do on the far right-hand side. And in this example here, we can see that the comms team have published finance have done their part and so on. the principle behind it is that only when all of those items on the right-hand side reach 100% will you be able to say that you've reached your goal at 100%. So if one of the components is letting you down, it becomes perfectly clear that that team or that person or whoever it is has not pulled their weight to get that across the line, or they've hit problems or whatever it may be. So it's about building out your goals into a measurable, traceable way of seeing that you are progressing properly. We'll send you the link. I think Jack is actually just going to reshare his screen.
Yeah.
Or have you done that, mate?
No, I'm just about to do it. So
yeah.
Okay, there we go. Can everyone see that?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Also, I think I worked out how to manage to pause that animation, so it should have been up on the screen for most of that talk there, Pete, which is good. Anyway, so yeah, so we're going to do a demo, but just to recap, we've got Microsoft Viva Goals, brings mission, vision, and values using the OKR framework, and really that's what brings us a solid strategy execution for you. So,
okay. So I think if we crack into the demo,
yeah,
and then we'll have a discussion about how that works.
Brilliant. Okay, so today's demo, we're going to give you a very brief overview of Microsoft Viva Goals. Currently just going to run through the web interface of things and some of the admin functionality that's within that. Then we're going to flick over into Teams, show you how you can create a goal, an OKR, so create an objective, create some key results and some projects and initiatives beneath it, how you can assign those to people and how you can then check them in. So here we're within the web interface. Currently it defaults to your My OKR screen. There's some handy things like notifications, search functionality, overall look at the whole company's OKRs and projects. There's some handy sort of views you can create here, so you could look at all overdue OKRs or ones that are behind or at risk, etc. But we're not going to delve into that just now. You've got the things like teams and user creation and adding, and then you've got a feed which just shows you the activity from within Microsoft Viva Goals. But the thing we're really interested in today is the admin side of things. So here we are, the admin dashboard. We've got the settings, so who can join this organization, anyone within the business, or do you want to restrict that? Perhaps you'd want to restrict it if you're doing it as a pilot thing, or just getting the leadership OKRs in there before you start pushing that out to the rest of the business. Default user types, that when you create a new user, is it a regular user or an observer? Couple of things to note there. OKRs can only be assigned to regular users. Observers can be converted to regular users if an OKR is to be assigned to them. But generally the observer functionality, they don't actually get the opportunity to check in those OKRs themselves. It's just so they can see what's going on. When an observer user is promoted to a regular user, and that user's manager is an observer user too, the manager is also promoted to a regular user with right access. Just something to bear in mind there. So the invite policy, who can invite people to the organization? A few different options there, only the admins, or only admins and team admins, or anyone or any regular user. Same with Teams creation, who do you want to be able to do that? There's options there for you. Who can export OKRs? Who can create tags? And then just some sort of housekeeping stuff like your organization's name and details. And then if you need to open a support case, then you can enable support so they can log into your instance of it. We've got users here. So by default, not necessarily everyone is invited and set up as a user. You can do that when you create the organization itself, but just for the purpose of this, I'm going to add a member for us. So I come in here, search for the person I want to add, and click add members. It will automatically send them an email to say that they've been added to Microsoft Viva Goals, or you could copy a link, which is one of the options there, and then send them a message separately. We've got teams, so this is where you can create teams and sub-teams of people who are going to work on the same OKRs together. We've got time periods. So this is, where does your planning year start? Are we going to be looking at goals on a quarterly basis, or do we want to change that? So really, it's the rhythm of your business. How does it work? When are you going to create OKRs? When are you going to be checking them in? And when are you going to be completing and reviewing them? We've got notification settings here. So this is the check-in rhythm. How regularly do you want your people to be checking in their goals? Is it every Monday at 9 a.m.? Who says it has to be? Is it done on a weekly basis? Is it done every 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or a month? Again, depends on the rhythm of your business. So handy little tick box there though, do not include OKRs and projects updated within the last X amount of days. So get annoyed being asked to check in an OKR that they might have checked in 2 days ago. And then a summary update rhythm. When do you want updates to be sent by default? So based on check-in rhythm, 1 hour after check-in rhythm schedule, or do you want to customize that? We've then got integration. So currently ours is only integrated with Teams, but as we discussed in part 1 and we've discussed further in this one, you can actually integrate it into a whole host of different systems, a lot of different SaaS applications, etc. out there. So that's really useful if you've got some OKRs, or certainly on the key results or the projects and initiative side, where things can be measured automatically by a system. It can update those OKRs for you automatically. So here's some of those, just a few of those integrations that are there, but it would, it would take a while to go through them all. Then we've got the OKR model configuration. So how do you want to be able to create those objectives? Do you want to be able to nest other objectives beneath other objectives so that you can have nested ones which have, you might have an overall company objective, some key results, but then you've got a team of people here which need their own objective that they're working towards, and then key results, projects and initiatives beneath that. So key results are the ones that they need to be measurable. So that helps define the objective success. So example, increase profit margin by 50 to 60%. Do you want to allow key results to be nested under other key results? Similar to what we just spoke about with the objectives. And then just, are you going to enable projects or not? And the last tab here, so that's the OKRs and projects. Following settings provide the ability for multiple teams and owners to collaborate on their key objectives and projects. So do you want multiple teams to be able to feed into OKRs together, or are you siloing things off and this team owns it completely and they shouldn't have interaction from other people to need to own that objective or key result? And the same with multiple owners. So you've then got OKR workflows. So that's, do you want to have an approval workflow where if someone checks it in or says it's complete, does it need to go to their manager level for that to be approved? You then get progress status. So that's just at what thresholds do you want things to look, either say that they're at risk, they're behind, or they're on track. And then there's a color scale for OKR scores as well. So that was a very quick and brief whistle-stop tour of the admin side of things. Next, we're going to jump over into Teams. We'll show you how to create an objective, how to create some key results, some projects and initiatives, how to assign those to users, and then how to check them in. So now we're within Teams, and we're on the My OKR section, which is just here. Signed in as myself. I flicked it over to Q4 because we've got a bunch of other stuff in the other quarters and I wanted to show you how you do it from the beginning. So first off, we need to have an objective. That's that thing that needs to be actionable, aspirational and meaningful, and be that thing that the whole business is striving for. So we're going to click add an objective. And if you watched yesterday's webinar, we came up with an example one, and it was to become the UK's #1 advertising agency. That's a pretty good aspiration to have if you're an advertising agency. So I think that's written there. I'm going to leave myself as the owner, and when we're going to put it in for Q4. So the outcome is we need to get to 100% complete. Progress is updated automatically via the roll up from the key results. So as the key results get checked in and completed, in turn, the progress of this objective gets updated and completed. So then we're just going to click create. Now we've got our first objective. Obviously it's not started because the way this one gets updated is by our key results. So here we are. To become the UK's #1 advertising agency, we need some key results that are going to help us achieve that. So again, if you watched yesterday, I think the first one was increase ad revenue by 1.5 million. So along here, I've clicked key results. I'm going to click add. Increase ad revenue by 1.5 million. The progress is going to be updated manually. You can add metrics with but we won't, just for the purpose of this demo. Details is currently with myself and in this quarter, and the alignment is aligned to that objective that we've just created. Just going to click create on that. So one of the other things, I know we always talk about key results being measurable, but what about if you have a key result that you just can't measure at the moment? You don't have the ability to do so. So I think a good key result there is to make it a key result that says, well, let's just be able to measure it. So one of the things that this ad agency needs to be able to do is measure revenue individually by each department, so then they can get more granular in the places they really focus on. So I'm going to stick in there, be able to measure revenue individually by each department. Going to click create. And then we're just going to add some more in, again, ones that we talked about yesterday. So we've got run 3 online events within the next quarter. And then we talked about running projects, and they're the things that you actually have to do to hit the key results in turn, which allow you to hit the objective. So we're going to add a project in here. And it's going to be to target enterprise team with 1 million growth. So this is, sorry, I clicked on the wrong button there. So we've created that, but I just want to change something here. I'm going to add an owner in here. So I'm going to add Pete Vasey into that. I'm going to click done. Like I said in the admin panel earlier, you can have multiple owners. So we're going to have that one within there. You're going to click save, and as you can see, it has a slightly different logo down here, but now that is a project. The others are key results. One of the others was target the SMC team with 0.5 million pounds of growth. So I'm going to add another project in here. And then this time I'm going to change the owner completely. We're going to put in Ross, who could be perhaps the leader of the SMC team. So we're going to click done. We're going to click save. So like I said, really whistle-stop tour of this. We've added an objective, we've added some key results, we've added some projects, and we've changed the owners of some of them. So I'm just going to show you how easy it is to just check something in. So let's say this, I own this increased ad revenue by 1.5 million. This quarter, we're already at 75% of that. One thing we always advise people to do is when they're checking something in, make sure that you give like a note so that you actually have something to go back on and to look at perhaps why you're not hitting something or what is going on. You type in there what we're doing, how far we've got, why we've got there, things that perhaps we need to do to reach the next step of this goal, and then we're going to click check in. So like I said, as you can see, now that we've updated this, the objective itself starts to update as well, because that's the hierarchy of how this is working. So that is, like I said, a very whistle-stop tour of Microsoft Viva Goals.
Cool. So now we really want to have a bit of a discussion. Obviously, as I said, Kritzia hasn't been able to join us today, so please do throw questions in. I think the first one, Jack, that we wanted to sort of cover off, which we did touch on yesterday, was the difference between a KPI and an OKR. And I think just to set the record straight, a KPI is a metric. You are measuring something usually numerically, whereas an OKR is a framework, and that framework, like Jack's just shown, might actually include some KPIs. So, you know, we need to hit 100 new sales calls outbound within the month of October. That would be something that you can put a hard measurement against as one of those projects. So KPIs fit within an OKR, but the OKR is the general framework. So I think questions that sort of come to mind as we go through this is, How often really should an organisation be setting OKRs, and really who should set that key objective?
Yeah. So I think the how often should they be set is an interesting one, and I think it differs depending on your business. I think quarterly is definitely a good way to start looking at it, but it might be perhaps when you first put them in, and then you work out actually we're, depending on the size of your business and how agile you are, it might be you smashed out all of those OKRs really quickly and done it. Now that could mean perhaps they're not aspirational enough, or perhaps it just means that you're a really agile business that gets things done really quickly. So perhaps you should reduce or increase the frequency that you set the OKRs, which is an interesting thing, which I think once you start doing it, that's when you can start fine tuning it and say, well, actually, we're better off working in this sort of rhythm of our business. And then equally,
Get it going, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And then equally, in some, it might be that quarterly's too many, and you need to expand it and maybe do it 3 times a year or something like that.
Fair enough. And so who comes out with this? Does this have to come from a group CEO, or does it have to come from a particular person, or one of the things we talked about yesterday, which of course nobody heard, was whether or not this is actually just run at a department level or a country level?
Yeah, I think to get the best out of it, it needs to come from the top. I think you need to have that vision and mission set at the very top of the business, because you kind of want everyone to see how. I think then having separate departmental ones is a very good idea, though, because you could have this overall objective that might be, if you work your way all the way down to, say, people who are just in a call center somewhere, how do they actually see that they can affect this overall objective of becoming whatever you've set there, and it might be a few steps away. So having objectives lower down at the departmental level will give them more sort of focus on how what they do will drive that objective, which in turn drives the overall one. So I think it needs to come from the very top, but I think having individual departmental ones is very valid as well.
Yeah, and that comes back to something we said yesterday again, which was people tend to perform better if they know why they're doing something rather than just doing something. So if they can see the value of where they fit into the process, that's cool.
Yeah.
So you did mention something about observers right at the beginning.
Yeah.
Who typically would an observer be?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think perhaps, so if you have a team, so maybe you've set up the OKRs at that high level, you've got a team of people who've got their own OKRs that they're working towards, but perhaps there's like a team leader or some project managers who want to see how a project is going, but they don't actually have a physical effect on the numbers of that key result, so they can't affect the key result, but they want to see how things are going, because you could set an OKR relating to a project which then relates to achieving the objective. So having observers who can come in and say, oh, well, how are we doing in this OKR, which is, this project has a real meaningful thing to help us achieve the objective, but this person doesn't actually have the ability to affect the change within it. So that's the typical type of person I think you'd see as an observer.
Okay, cool. And when we look at some of the other tooling that's around, where people get assigned tasks, Planner is a great example of that. You're unaware, you suddenly get an email drop in going, hey, you've been assigned a new task. Different people react in different ways to that. Is there a chance that this is going to be another noisy product?
It's a good one, that, and it's also perhaps you'll get people saying stuff like, oh, well, we're already tracking this information over here, but I think having that information does already exist, but is it functional? When there's goals, data and processes are constrained by silos. So, perhaps this team has its own bit of software that it tracks something in, or it's dispersed across multiple systems. It then limits the organization's ability to sort of embrace the opportunity there, and adapt to the change and be able to see it all. So the leadership needs sort of easy access to all of this information. Whereas perhaps if you've got a team of people that have got their own thing they're tracking here, but it's not transparent. And I think this is the key thing of Viva Goals, is it is transparent. everyone can see everything within it. This isn't where you shouldn't put stuff in here that you're going to hide. It's very much about being open and sharing full transparency. So every individual leader and executive, doesn't matter what level of the business you're at, can see the results of it. And I think that's a real good motivator.
Educational piece that goes alongside this then, because you just talked about departments or whatever it is sharing the progress.
Yeah,
that's actually quite a critical part to this. It's all very well having that management information to say that department A's done their bit, B hasn't, C's on its way, whatever it may be. But actually, if that information is not shared and fed back into the teams to go, well, actually, this is our goal and we're only 40% of the way to achieving it. If you don't follow up on that kind of thing, you're not actually going to drive that team or group or whatever it is across the line to achieve it, right?
Yeah, and also celebrate the wins and the success as well. It's great to be able to do that and say, look, we've all done this and we've achieved this objective, which has meant that, as a result, we've done this. So it's a really good thing.
Put into Viva Connections, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, automatically post into it. It'd be great.
Plug.
Yeah. Also, one other thing, it is an interesting thing. They've got lots that we talked about, the integrations that you've got. So perhaps you've got a team that are already using, say, Power BI or something, which they're tracking some metrics in. You can actually, I'm not sure if, I think the Power BI ones are coming very soon to Viva Goals, or it might be there. But there's certainly other tools that are already doing it. It can automatically update your key results. So as it updates, it will automatically do it for you and check in things for you. So that's really useful as well.
Great. Well, I'm just conscious that there's 3 minutes left, probably less than that. I think the main thing is that yes, this is a good tool. Yes, it does need to be thought through, but it's definitely something that is, I think, growing in strength throughout business in general. So I think we've just got a summary slide after this one. Really, I think we can skip past that one. But I think really the main thing is that it's a great tool to play around with. Once you get your head around the concepts of it, it's actually relatively simple. It is a mapping exercise, but it does engage the whole of the business. So really, if you want to have a conversation with us about Viva Goals, have a look at how it works in more detail, we can certainly do that for you. That's not a problem at all. These sessions are both very short, whereas realistically a conversation about Viva Goals is probably an hour and a half to 2 hours as we sort of work through some of the things that it might be able to help you with. So unfortunately, again, no questions. Hopefully that doesn't mean that there's been another technical hitch. But thank you very much, Jack. And yes, if you want to understand anything else about Viva Goals or any of the other Viva products, or want to run some pilots on them, just let us know and we'll happily help.
Yeah. Thanks very much, everyone.